Hey guys, welcome back to Thorough Capping. It's Dave, and happy Halloween to everyone. It is 10:31, Hallows Eve, and I got a little break from giving out candy, so I wanted to put together this video as the next update to Breeders' Cup Saturday. In my last video, I had mentioned that I am not going to do any races Friday. I'm going to refrain. I'm going to put all my focus on Saturday's races. And I also mentioned I'm going to be starting with the dirt races, okay, the main track races. And I completed all the main track races that are being run from race 3 all the way through to race 11, the finale. Now, I'm going to make a promise to you that I am going to look at the turf races in the next few days and see what I can see what I can make of those turf races. There's just so many Euro shippers and Japan shippers in there that, as I mentioned before, if you take a look at the past performances for this happens to be the Philly Mare Turf Grade 1. Here's one of the foreign shippers right here. I tossed this horse, and there's nothing to go by. I mean, we got a final time. We don't even have a 6 furlong. We don't even have a fractional split or anything on the foreign past performances, and we don't even have any workouts. The only thing I can really use is we don't have trainer percentages. I could pull the qualitative portion of next out. Were there any next out winners? Was it a key race, and so on? But again, being that these methods are based on numbers for the most part, and the TC rating factor, and I've been doing follow the figures with all these horses. I mean, we don't have any Brisnet figures to go by, or so on. So here's the rule that I'm going to make for this week. For every one of these turf races, being that the Euro shippers usually fare well in those races, I'm going to come up with 3 American horses and 1 Euro shipper. And that's going to make up my 4 selections for the turf races in the upcoming few days. And I will do another video with them as well. And barring any more scratches on the main track, I'm probably not going to do any more videos. So tonight's video is going to be the final analysis, what I'm looking at on Saturday. First of all, awful news on Practical Move. The horse supposedly had a heart attack today and died, for those that didn't hear about that situation. And just awful news, especially with the way horses are going down lately. I mean, I don't know what's going on, but I have a feeling it's going to chase a lot of people away and a lot of fans away from the game. Okay, I don't know how many bettors it's going to chase away. Maybe when the fields start getting shortened and watered down, it might start chasing some bettors away. But at the same time, I think fans of the game are going to start turning away little by little if this continues to happen. But let's take a look here at the sheet starting with the dirt mile. Now, I did go over these a little bit yesterday. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the final analysis grid over here. There were a lot of moves in this race. When I say moves, between the scratches and horses that were listed in the early past performances in multiple races. One being Senor Buscador. Senor Buscador was listed as in the Classic and as well in the mile. I love this horse in the mile. I mean, most of these tops here were Senor Buscador, and he was going to be my top play in the mile. But he has now moved to the Classic. And when we get to the Classic, we'll take a look on how he figured out there as well. But let's take a look here. What I did was I didn't bother replacing any of these horses that either scratched out of the race or decided to run elsewhere. Bright Future was another one of them that figured pretty well in this race, but he's now running in the Classic as well. So my initial tosses, the 8, the 6, and the 1, and the 7, you know what? I still had 4 horses left to look at, and they were the 4 horses mainly that, other than Practical Move, again, may he rest in peace. These were the horses that I ended up doing the Bright Futures out to. So the pace on. And as I mentioned in my other video, what I did was I did barring any early tosses from my qualitative scan, anybody that was left, I did the matrix figures on them. I also did the follow the figures on them. And any horses that were showing up multiple times in the matrix or the TC side and the follow the figure side, I went and I ran the pace numbers on them. Any horse that wasn't showing up, I did not toss it, but I didn't bother running any pace figures on it. So let's take a look at the mile over here. And I have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 total analysis, individual analysis. Okay, and now what I did was, on a piece of paper, I went and I figured out power ratings for all these horses. I gave 3 points for a top place, 2 points for a second, 1 place for a third, and if there was a near fourth, I listed them. You'll see in other races that I have 4 horses in some of these categories. I also gave that horse 1 point. I didn't bother putting the ratings over here, so you're going to have to just trust me on that. Cody's Wish came out as the top, and he is the 9-5 morning line favorite. But right behind him was National Treasure. Now, there was a big difference. If you go and you look at what I was saying before, Cody's Wish would move up to first here. That would be 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 22, 23. That's 26 total points for Cody's Wish. Okay, so he is the overwhelming choice out of these 4. But it's a horse race and anything can happen. We have a nice 8-1 morning line in National Treasure right behind, followed by the 4 Zozos, who kind of slipped his way in, and same with Charge It, because of the Senor Buscador and Practical Move being out. Those 2 horses kind of, and Bright Future as well. Those 2 horses kind of snuck their way in. The next race I did was the Filly Mare Sprint, which is on the main track. And I have a little more of a breakdown here, simply because I didn't have to eliminate any horses. Pretty much every horse that was listed in the early PPs are running, with the exception of 3. There was like 17 horses listed, or 14 or something like that. So this is what we have. We have pretty much a full field here. And if you look at the categories, we'll show you what each category means. The matrix side, I will color code these so they stand out. The matrix side of the grid, the matrix side is the matrix side of the grid here. Okay, Goodnight Olive, number 1. Society, number 2. Kirsten Bach, number 3. And then I had to throw a 4th in there. I threw the 2 horse Clearly Unhinged, because I went simply by the TC rating. Or I could have thrown Ida the 3 in there as well, because he's only 1/10 of a point behind, and he's also second in ability. But yet at this side, Clearly Unhinged is actually a co-target with the 5 Kirsten Bosch and Goodnight Olive. But you're going to find out in the end, the summary, that separation there didn't matter, because those horses really didn't figure elsewhere. Now we have the TC side. TC side, we'll go a little bit darker, is TC, simply the TC rating. Okay, after the TC1 is influenced by the qualitative data, which there wasn't much. We have Goodnight Olive, Society, Kirsten Bosch, and Clearly Unhinged. 1752, the same. So everything at the top here is 1752. Okay, the third was the follow the figures, left side of the grid. So we'll go with a different color. We'll go with an orange. And Goodnight Olive finishes, and Society finishes second here. I'm just looking at blue. The left side of the grid is actually over here. Okay, the left side of the grid ends over here. And then I consider this the right side of the grid. Let me go back because it's taken my color away. And really the only thing I'm looking at is on the second side of the grid, FTF2, it's labeled over here as FTF2. The only thing I'm looking at is the average of the last 3. Okay? And I think that's a standalone, because simply we're taking the last 3 races. It's an analysis of recency, and we're taking those last 3 races and we're getting the best average of its Briz figures. Okay? Barring any races that I might have tossed due to trouble trip or maybe a different surface, but I really didn't run into many of those problems in these races here. And if you look over here, we see that in the left side of the grid, we have 1783. And in the second side of the grid, go a little darker orange, we have a 7158. Okay, so the 1 and the 7 are staying on top. But we have the 5 now, or actually we have the 8 in the mix here, and we have the 2 in the mix here and here. Now, what we have here is, this is a combination of the total, the overall, or actually, no, I'm jumping ahead. This is the follow the figures rating. Okay, this is like the TC rating using the follow the figures system. And that's, you'll find that right here. Okay, this is after the grid. The formula does its totals. Okay, we have the 1 horse, 7, 5, and 8 as a close third or fourth. So again, we have 1758 over here. And we'll change that. And then what we have here is we have a combination now. Being that I'm using both methods, the TC method as well as the follow the figures method, FTF, I wanted to come together with these two ratings. And I wanted to come up with an average. So that was the TC rating averaged together with the follow FTF rating. And then we have our top 3 or 4, which is the 1, 7, 5, and the 8. So there seems to be a little bit of a trend here going on with the 1, 7, and 5, and the 8. And we'll start switching over to the blues now. Okay? So that was everything as far as the 2 sets of methods using the TC and the follow the figures. And then what I did was I ran the horses that showed up here in the through the pace grid. Okay, and we have the pace sections. This is Velo 1, the early part of the race. Velo 2, the second part of the race. And again, just keep in mind that the second part of the race is the turn. Okay, the far turn. And then we have the finish here, Velo 3. And what I did was I have a section for all 3 of them. We have, we'll go with the reds. Velo 1 is 581. Velo 2, Velo 2 is 175. And then Velo 3 was 571. So there's that 1, 5, and 7 again showing up here and here, the second and third part of the race. And then, if you remember, the pace grids also average out. We did not look at EP here simply because, actually I did, but I did not put a analysis category for the X factor or factor X. But across the board here, in the overall averages shows the 5. Okay, in all 3 categories that I decided to use up here in the analysis, we have the early pace, 5. We'll go purples. Sustained pace. And remember, the early pace is the best average of Velo 1 and Velo 2. Okay? Sustained pace is the best average of Velo 2 and Velo 3. And the 5 also gets the nod here, but we have the 7 Society moving into the race now, or moving into the picture. And then finally, the over average pace, overall pace, is the 5. Now, when I do the math here, I got 3, 6, 9, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 points on the 5, Kirstenbosch. When you look at Goodnight Olive, we have 3, 6, 9, 11, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 24.